Yes, there's a black kid causing trouble in my store. She's here to steal and I need someone here immediately. The white manger held her phone tightly as she spoke to the police, staring down at the young kid, Madison Taylor, who was simply trying to buy a birthday dress for her mother. Madison stood there in shock, clutching her carefully saved money, watching this woman lie to the authorities about her with zero remorse. Suddenly, the alarms began wailing throughout the shopping center. Emergency lights bathed the store in flashing red as shoppers rushed toward the exits. In the midst of this chaos stood Madison, frozen as the approaching sirens grew louder outside. But here's what Karen Stevens didn't know. She had no idea who she was messing with. She thought she was dealing with just another black girl she could intimidate and humiliate, but she was dead wrong. Before we start the story, if you stand against discrimination, hit the subscribe button, type yes, and where you're watching from in the comments. You will definitely get a heartwarming reply from us. Madison Taylor, the young black girl, had been raised by a single mother who taught her about respect and kindness. Madison's mother, Michelle, was turning 40 in just 1 week, and this incredible daughter had been planning the perfect surprise for months. She'd been saving every penny from her allowance, $450. That might not sound like much to some people, but for a 14-year-old, that was a fortune earned through pure dedication and love. Madison had researched the perfect dress online for weeks. She knew exactly what she wanted, something elegant and beautiful that would make her hardworking mother feel like a queen on her special day. And she'd decided to do something she'd never done before: shop at her mother's boutique all by herself. She wanted this to be her gift, her surprise, her way of showing her mother how much she appreciated everything she'd sacrificed for them. So there Madison was, walking into Bella's boutique with her heart full of excitement and her carefully counted money in her purse, ready to make her mother's birthday dreams come true. Her mother? Michelle Taylor wasn't just any mother. At 40 years old, she was the CEO and owner of Prestige Fashion Group, a multi-million-dollar company that she'd built from absolutely nothing. Prestige Fashion Group owned Bella's boutique. The very store where Madison was shopping belonged to her own mother. Karen Stevens, 45 years old, was the store manager at Bella's boutique for 6 years, and absolutely convinced that she was the guardian of the store's upscale reputation. Karen saw herself as a gatekeeper, deciding who belonged in her boutique and who didn't. She'd perfected the art of disguising her deep-seated prejudices as store policy, always finding professional-sounding reasons for treating certain customers differently. Karen had built her entire identity around managing this high-end store, believing that excluding the wrong kind of people was protecting the business. She had no clue that she was about to come face to face with the woman who actually owned everything she thought she was protecting. The moment Madison Taylor stepped through the glass doors of Bella's boutique, Karen Stevens' eyes locked onto her like a predator spotting prey. Here was a young black girl, walking into her upscale store unaccompanied by any adult. In Karen's twisted mind, this was already suspicious. This was a boutique where dresses started at $300 and went up to $500 or more. What was a kid doing here alone? Just 2 minutes before Madison arrived, a white woman in her 30s had walked in with her teenage daughter, and Karen's entire demeanor was completely different. "Good afternoon, ladies. Welcome to Bella's. How can I help you find something absolutely stunning today?" Karen's voice was warm, welcoming, filled with genuine enthusiasm. She guided them to the newest arrivals, offered them complimentary water, and asked about special occasions they might be shopping for. But when Madison approached the counter with a polite smile, ready to ask for help finding the perfect dress for her mother's birthday, Karen barely looked up from her paperwork. No greeting, no welcome, nothing. Madison stood there for a full 30 seconds, waiting patiently like the well-mannered child she was, before finally saying, "Excuse me, ma'am, I'm looking for a dress for my mother's birthday." Karen glanced up with the most dismissive look you can imagine. "Dresses are over there," she said coldly, pointing vaguely toward the back of the store without even making eye contact. No offer to help, no questions about what Madison was looking for, no attempt at customer service whatsoever. Madison felt the chill immediately, but she'd been raised to give people the benefit of the doubt. Maybe the woman was just having a bad day. Maybe she was busy. So Madison smiled and said, "Thank you," walking toward the dress section with her head held high, determined not to let anyone's attitude ruin her special mission. Ashley, the sales associate, watched this interaction from across the store and felt that familiar sick feeling in her stomach. She'd seen Karen do this before. Treat certain customers like they didn't belong while rolling out the red carpet for others. Ashley wanted to help Madison, wanted to be the kind and welcoming presence this sweet girl deserved. But she was terrified. Karen had made it clear that employees who didn't follow her lead would find themselves looking for new jobs. Madison began browsing the dress selection, and let me tell you, this child was more careful and respectful than most adult customers would be. She gently touched the fabrics to feel their quality, examined the price tags carefully, and handled each dress like it was made of precious silk. She was looking for something special, something that would make her mother feel beautiful and appreciated. But Karen wasn't seeing a respectful young customer. She was seeing a threat that needed to be monitored. She began following Madison around the store, staying about 10 feet away, watching her every move like Madison was a known shoplifter. When Madison picked up a stunning blue dress to look at the price tag, Karen immediately appeared at her side. "Be very careful with that," Karen said sharply. "These are expensive items, not toys to play with." Madison looked up, startled. "Yes, ma'am, I understand. I'm just looking at the price." "Well, these dresses start at $300, Karen said with a tone that clearly suggested Madison couldn't possibly afford anything in the store. "You obviously can't afford it." But Madison had been raised right. Instead of getting defensive or upset, she simply said, "Thank you for letting me know about the prices. I've been saving my money for this." Karen's eyebrows shot up in disbelief, but she walked away, muttering something under her breath that Madison couldn't quite hear. For the next 20 minutes, this pattern continued. Every time Madison showed interest in a dress, Karen would appear with some snide comment. "Do you understand how much that costs? These need to be handled very carefully." Meanwhile, Emma Wilson, a 16-year-old white customer, was watching all of this unfold. She'd been shopping with her mother's credit card for a homecoming dress, and Karen had been nothing but sweet and helpful to her, offering to bring different sizes, suggesting accessories, even offering to hold items while Emma decided. The contrast in treatment was so obvious. But Madison was showing incredible maturity for her age. Despite the hostile treatment, she continued shopping with dignity, determined to find the perfect dress for her mother. And then she saw it, a gorgeous emerald green dress with delicate beading around the neckline. It was elegant, sophisticated, exactly the kind of thing that would make her mother feel like royalty on her 40th birthday. Madison carefully lifted the dress from the rack and looked at the price tag. $400. Perfect. She had $450, which would leave her enough for tax and maybe a nice gift box. She walked to the counter where Karen was now helping Emma pick out accessories, waiting patiently for her turn. When Emma finished, Madison stepped forward with the dress draped carefully over her arm. "Excuse me, I'd like to try this dress on, please," Madison said politely. Karen looked at the dress, then at Madison, and her face immediately hardened. "That dress costs $400, she said slowly, like she was talking to someone who couldn't understand basic English. "I don't think it's for you." Madison's heart sank, but she'd anticipated this moment. She reached into her purse and pulled out her carefully counted money. $450 in neat bills that she'd organized and reorganized dozens of times. "I have the money," she said quietly, setting it on the counter. "I've been saving for months to buy my mother a birthday dress. The look on Karen's face was priceless. For a split second, you could see the shock that this child actually had the money. But instead of apologizing or showing any kind of decency, Karen's shock quickly turned to something much uglier. Anger. "Where did you get this money?" Karen demanded, staring at the bills like they were stolen goods. Madison was confused by the question. "I saved it. From my allowance." But Karen wasn't buying it. In her twisted mind, there was no way this black teenager could legitimately have $450. "I don't believe you," she said flatly. "No kid your age has that kind of money unless something shady is going on." Madison's eyes filled with tears, but she tried one more time. "Ma'am, I promise you, this is my money. I can show you the bank envelope it came from. I can call my mother if you need someone to verify." "No," Karen cut her off. "I don't want to hear your stories. Put that dress back and leave my store." That's when Madison realized what was really happening. This wasn't about money or store policy. This was about the color of her skin. This woman had decided Madison didn't belong here the moment she walked through the door, and nothing Madison said or did was going to change her mind. But Madison was her mother's daughter, and she wasn't going to be bullied into leaving without a fight. "I'd like to speak to your manager," she said quietly. Karen laughed, actually laughed. "I am the manager, sweetheart, and I'm telling you to leave." That's when things got truly ugly. Madison, still trying to be respectful, said, "Then I'd like to speak to your district manager or the store owner." Karen's face turned red with rage. How dare this child challenge her authority? How dare she not just slink away in shame like Karen expected? "You're not speaking to anyone," Karen snarled. "In fact, I think you're trying to cause trouble. I think you came in here to steal, and I think you're concealing items." Madison's mouth dropped open. "What? I'm not concealing anything. You can search my purse. You can." "I saw you put something in your jacket pocket," Karen lied, her voice getting louder. "I've been watching you, and you've been acting suspicious since you walked in here." The entire store went silent. Other customers turned to stare. Ashley Rodriguez felt like she was going to be sick. Emma Wilson pulled out her phone and started recording, unable to believe what she was witnessing. Madison was shaking now, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't take anything. Please, just let me call my mother." But Karen was on a power trip now, feeling like she was finally in complete control. "No phone calls. You're a shoplifter, and I'm calling the police." And that's exactly what she did. Karen Stevens picked up the phone and dialed 911, staring Madison down with pure hatred in her eyes. "Yes, this is Karen Stevens, manager at Bella's Boutique on 5th Street. I have a young black female here attempting theft. She's been concealing items and being aggressive when confronted. I need immediate police assistance." Madison tried to pull out her phone to call her mother, but Karen screamed at her to put it away. "No phone calls. Sit down and wait for the police." If you believe Karen was wrong to call the cops on Madison, type justice in the comments and tell us what you would have done to Karen if you were Madison's mother. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on stories like this. 23 miles across town, Michelle Taylor was sitting in the most important board meeting of the quarter. The boardroom at Prestige Fashion Group headquarters was filled with executives, investors, and department heads discussing a $50 million expansion that would create hundreds of jobs across 3 states. Michelle, impeccably dressed in a charcoal gray power suit, was leading the presentation with the kind of calm authority that had built her empire from nothing. Sitting directly across from her was Richard Blackstone, the biggest investor in the company, and a man who'd made it clear he thought a black woman couldn't run a fashion empire. He'd been questioning every decision Michelle made for months, looking for any sign of weakness he could exploit to push her out of her own company. "As you can see from these projections," Michelle was saying, pointing to the massive screen behind her, "our third quarter profits exceeded expectations by 18%, and customer satisfaction scores are at an all-time high across all our retail locations." Richard leaned forward with that condescending smile she'd grown to hate. That's impressive, Michelle. But I have concerns about your management style. Some of our store managers have been reporting issues with your, let's call them progressive policies regarding customer service. Michelle's jaw tightened slightly, but she maintained her composure. Could you be more specific, Richard? The room went quiet. Everyone knew Richard was trying to bait Michelle into an emotional response that he could use against her later. Michelle was about to deliver a response that would put him in his place when her assistant, Patricia Martinez, knocked on the boardroom door. Patricia had worked for Michelle for 8 years and had strict instructions never to interrupt board meetings unless someone was literally dying. The look on Patricia's face made Michelle's blood run cold. "Ma'am," Patricia whispered to the security guard. "There's an emergency call about Miss Taylor's daughter." Michelle's phone was on silent, face down on the mahogany table, as company policy demanded during board meetings. She grabbed it and saw 17 missed calls and 12 text messages. The most recent text, sent just 3 minutes ago, made her heart stop. "Mommy, please help me. They're arresting me, and I didn't do anything. I'm at Bella's boutique. Please come." The transformation was instantaneous and terrifying. The composed CEO disappeared, replaced by a mother whose child was in mortal danger. Michelle shot up from her chair so fast it nearly toppled over, her face shifting from professional calm to barely contained fury. "This meeting is adjourned," she announced, her voice cutting through the room like a knife. "Emergency family situation." Richard Blackstone saw his opportunity. "Michelle, you can't just leave in the middle of the most important presentation of the quarter. This is exactly the kind of unprofessional behavior I've been talking about." Michelle turned on him with eyes that could have melted steel. "Richard, my 14-year-old daughter is in police custody. If you have a problem with me prioritizing my child's safety over your investment concerns, you can take it up with the board of directors." "Oh wait, that's me." She grabbed her keys and purse, her hands already shaking with adrenaline. "Patricia, clear my schedule for the rest of the day. Get David Chen on the phone immediately and call Dr. Sarah Williams. If my daughter has been traumatized, I want our family therapist on standby." The board members sat in stunned silence as Michelle Taylor, the woman who never lost her composure, never showed vulnerability, headed for the door. Richard Blackstone was already pulling out his phone, probably to call other investors and spread rumors about Michelle's instability. Michelle's heels clicked against the marble floor of the lobby as she speed-dialed Madison's number. Straight to voicemail. She tried again. Voicemail. Her hands were shaking as she pressed the elevator button, her mind racing through every possible scenario. In the parking garage, Michelle climbed into her black Mercedes-AMG and immediately called her lawyer. "David, my daughter's been arrested at Bella's boutique. I don't know what the hell is going on, but I need you there now." David Chen had been Michelle's attorney for 12 years, helping her navigate everything from business deals to custody battles with Madison's father. "Arrested? Madison? What for?" His voice was incredulous. He'd known Madison since she was a baby. The idea of her being in trouble with the law was absurd. "I don't know," Michelle said, tearing out of the parking garage. "But I'm about to find out, and somebody is going to pay for this." As she raced through downtown traffic, Michelle made another call. "Chief Morrison? It's Michelle Taylor. My daughter's been arrested at one of my stores, and I need answers now." Chief Morrison had been police chief for 8 years, and Michelle had been one of the department's biggest supporters. She donated hundreds of thousands to police community programs, funded new equipment, and even helped establish a scholarship program for officers' children. "Michelle, what are you talking about?" "Let me check what's happening," Chief Morrison said, clearly confused. "Hold on." Michelle could hear him typing frantically in the background. "I'm showing a shoplifting call at Bella's boutique on 5th Street. Officer Johnson responded. "Michelle, are you sure we're talking about Madison? This doesn't make any sense." "Chief, my daughter texted me from police custody. She's young, she's never even gotten a detention at school, and somebody thought it was appropriate to put her in handcuffs for shopping. Find out what the hell happened and fix it." Meanwhile, across town, the news was starting to spread through Michelle's network. Patricia had called Dr. Sarah Williams, the family therapist who'd helped Michelle and Madison through the divorce years earlier. "Patricia, what exactly happened?" Dr. Williams asked, already grabbing her keys to head to the boutique. "We don't know details yet, but Madison was arrested for allegedly shoplifting. Mrs. Taylor is beside herself. I've never seen her like this." Dr. Williams had known Michelle for 6 years and had watched her handle everything from business crises to death threats with unshakable composure. If Michelle was falling apart, the situation was worse than anyone realized. Back at Bella's boutique, the situation was becoming a spectacle. Word had spread through social media about a black teenager being arrested at the upscale store, and people were starting to gather outside. Some were taking pictures and videos. Others were asking questions about what had happened. Inside the store, Ashley Rodriguez was having a complete breakdown. She'd watched Karen Stevens destroy a child's life, and she'd done nothing to stop it. She kept thinking about her own 9-year-old daughter, Isabella, and how she'd feel if someone treated her baby the way Karen had treated Madison. Ashley's hands were shaking as she called her husband, Miguel. "Baby, something terrible happened at work today. I should have done something. I should have stopped it." Miguel Rodriguez had been a social worker for 15 years. He'd seen the damage that racial profiling could do to children, the trauma that could last for decades. "Ashley, where is this girl now?" "She's outside in a police car. Her mother is on the way. But Miguel, what if they take her to jail? What if this ruins her life? She's just a baby." Outside the store, Officer Johnson was getting increasingly uncomfortable with the situation. Madison Taylor didn't fit the profile of any shoplifter he'd ever arrested. She was polite, articulate, and genuinely seemed confused about why she was in trouble. Plus, the store manager's story had some holes in it. "Miss Taylor," Officer Johnson said gently, "can you tell me exactly what happened in the store?" Madison wiped her tears and tried to compose herself. "I came to buy a dress for my mother's birthday. I've been saving money for months. The lady was mean to me from the moment I walked in, following me around and making comments about the prices. When I showed her I had money to buy a dress, she got angry and accused me of stealing." "Did you take anything from the store?" "No, sir. I swear I didn't. I was just looking at dresses. I even offered to let her search my purse." Officer Johnson was starting to think he'd made a mistake. He'd responded to what he thought was a clear-cut shoplifting case, but this felt more like a misunderstanding that had spiraled out of control. That's when his radio crackled to life. "Unit 47, this is Chief Morrison. I need you to call me immediately regarding the juvenile in custody." Officer Johnson's stomach dropped. Chief Morrison never got directly involved in routine shoplifting cases. Something was very wrong. He stepped away from the patrol car and called the chief. "Chief, this is Johnson. You wanted me to call about the shoplifting case?" "Johnson, what the hell is going on over there? I just got a call from Michelle Taylor claiming we arrested her daughter for shopping." "Michelle Taylor?" "Chief, I don't understand." "Michelle Taylor, CEO of Prestige Fashion Group. Major police department supporter, personal friend of the mayor." "Johnson, tell me you didn't arrest this woman's daughter without absolute proof of a crime." Officer Johnson felt like the ground was shifting beneath his feet. "Chief, the store manager said she witnessed the girl shoplifting. She seemed credible." "Johnson, Michelle Taylor is one of the most powerful women in this city. If her daughter was wrongfully arrested, this is going to be a nightmare for all of us. What evidence do you actually have?" "Well, sir, the store manager said she saw the girl concealing items, but the girl denies it, and she seems genuinely confused about why she's in trouble." "Jesus Christ, Johnson, do you have any physical evidence? Did you find stolen merchandise?" "No, sir, we haven't searched her yet. I was waiting for a female officer to arrive." "Don't search her. Don't do anything else until I get there. And Johnson, start praying you didn't just destroy your career." The line went dead, and Officer Johnson felt sick to his stomach. He looked back at Madison, who was sitting in his patrol car looking like the innocent child she was, and realized he might have made the biggest mistake of his professional life. Meanwhile, Michelle's Mercedes was weaving through traffic at dangerous speeds. She'd called her brother Marcus, a federal judge, and her sister-in-law Denise, who worked for the NAACP. "Marcus, they arrested Madison. Some racist store manager had my baby put in handcuffs for shopping." Judge Marcus Taylor had seen his fair share of injustice in the legal system, but the idea of his niece being arrested for shopping made his blood boil. "Michelle, I'm heading to the store right now. Don't do anything that could make this worse. Let me handle the legal aspects." Michelle also called her best friend and business partner, Dr. Angela Thompson, who owned a chain of medical clinics. "Angela, I need you to meet me at Bella's boutique. If Madison has been traumatized, I want a doctor to examine her immediately." Dr. Thompson had been Michelle's best friend since college and was Madison's honorary aunt. "I'm already in my car." "Michelle, try to stay calm. Madison is strong, just like her mother." But Michelle was far from calm. She was a woman who had clawed her way up from poverty, who had faced down racist investors and sexist business partners, who had built an empire while raising a daughter as a single mother. She had never felt helpless in her adult life, but the thought of her child, scared and alone, was breaking her heart. As she raced through the city, Michelle's phone kept ringing. News of the arrest was spreading through her network of friends, colleagues, and business associates. Everyone who knew Madison was shocked. This was a child who volunteered at animal shelters and tutored younger kids at her school. Patricia, her assistant, called with updates. "Mrs. Taylor, I've been monitoring social media. There are already posts about Madison's arrest spreading online. Some people are calling for boycotts of Bella's boutique." "Let them boycott," Michelle said grimly. "After what they did to my daughter, I might shut that store down permanently." Back at the boutique, the crowd outside was growing larger. Someone had called the local news, and reporters were starting to arrive. Karen Stevens was beginning to realize that her routine shoplifting arrest was turning into something much bigger. Ashley Rodriguez finally found her courage. She approached one of the reporters, a young black woman named Keisha Jackson from Channel 7 News. "Excuse me," Ashley said quietly. "I work in the store. I saw everything that happened, and that little girl didn't do anything wrong." Keisha Jackson's eyes lit up. An employee witness could blow this story wide open. "Are you willing to go on camera?" Ashley thought about her own daughter, about the world she wanted Isabella to grow up in. "Yes. People need to know the truth about what happened here." Meanwhile, Dr. Sarah Williams had arrived at the scene. She immediately went to the patrol car where Madison was sitting and identified herself to Officer Johnson. Officer Johnson, already nervous about the situation, wasn't sure what to do. "Ma'am, I'm going to need to verify your credentials." That's when the sound of screeching tires cut through the afternoon air like a warning siren. Michelle Taylor's Mercedes AMG came to an abrupt halt in front of Bella's boutique, the kind of aggressive driving that made everyone on the sidewalk stop and stare. The engine was still running when the driver's door flew open, and Michelle emerged like a force of nature. She stood 5'7" in her designer heels, wearing a power suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. Her natural hair was pulled back in a sophisticated style that spoke of both professionalism and pride. But it was her presence that truly commanded attention, the kind of authority that comes from building an empire with your bare hands and refusing to let anyone tell you what you can't achieve. Every step she took toward that patrol car radiated barely controlled fury. Her heels clicked against the pavement like a countdown to Judgment Day. People on the sidewalk instinctively moved out of her way, sensing that this woman was not someone you wanted to cross. Right behind her, a second car pulled up. Judge Marcus Taylor stepped out, his federal credentials visible, followed by Dr. Angela Thompson carrying a medical bag. Karen Stevens watched this convoy of powerful people with growing confusion and terror. She'd never seen the owner of Prestige Fashion Group in person, and she had no idea that the woman striding toward her was about to destroy her entire world. Officer Johnson looked up from the patrol car and felt a strange sense of dread. There was something about this woman's approach that made him pause. She walked with the confidence of someone who owned everything in sight, someone who expected to be listened to and obeyed without question. When Michelle was about 10 feet away from the patrol car, she opened her mouth and her voice cut through everything like a blade. "Stop! Get those handcuffs off my daughter right now!" The authority in her voice was so commanding that Officer Johnson actually took a step back. Madison's head snapped up, tears of relief streaming down her face. Dr. Williams immediately went to Madison's side. "Sweetheart, it's okay. Your mom is here now." But Karen Stevens, still oblivious to who she was dealing with, stepped forward with that same smug expression she'd been wearing all day. She was about to put this woman in her place, just like she'd put the daughter in her place. "Ma'am," Karen said with condescending authority, "your daughter is a thief. She tried to steal from my store, and she's going to face the consequences for her actions." Michelle's eyes locked onto Karen with laser focus, and the temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. "Your store?" Michelle's voice was deadly quiet now, more terrifying than if she'd been screaming. Judge Marcus stepped forward, his federal badge clearly visible. "I'm Judge Marcus Taylor, and I want to know exactly what evidence you have against this child." Karen lifted her chin defiantly, not recognizing the significance of a federal judge getting involved. "I'm the manager of Bella's boutique, and I decide who belongs here and who doesn't. This girl doesn't belong here, and I saw her trying to steal." Michelle took another step closer, and Karen suddenly felt like she was staring into the eyes of a predator. "My daughter doesn't belong here," Michelle repeated slowly, like she was tasting the words and finding them poisonous. Officer Johnson, sensing the situation spiraling completely out of control, tried to regain some authority. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to step back while we sort this out." That's when Michelle reached into her purse and pulled out her driver's license and business card. She handed them to Officer Johnson with the kind of calm that comes before a devastating storm. Officer Johnson looked at the ID, and his face went completely white. His hands actually started shaking as he read the name. Michelle Taylor, CEO, Prestige Fashion Group. He'd seen that name on donation checks to the police department. He'd seen it on the invitation to the police chief's annual charity gala. He'd seen it in the newspaper's business section dozens of times. "Oh my God," he whispered so quietly that only Michelle could hear. Dr. Angela Thompson had moved to Madison's other side and was quietly assessing her condition. "Madison, honey, are you hurt? Did anyone touch you inappropriately?" Michelle's voice was still deadly calm as she spoke to Officer Johnson, but her eyes never left Karen's face. "Officer, what you're holding is my identification. What you need to know is that I am Michelle Taylor, CEO and owner of Prestige Fashion Group. Prestige Fashion Group owns Bella's boutique. This woman works for me, and she just had my daughter arrested for shopping in my own store." The silence that followed was deafening. You could literally hear people breathing. The news cameras were rolling, capturing every word. Karen Stevens' face went from smug confidence to confusion to dawning horror in about 3 seconds flat. Ashley Rodriguez had pushed through the crowd and was now standing close enough to hear everything. When she heard Michelle's revelation, she stepped forward. "Mrs. Taylor," Ashley said, her voice shaking. "I'm Ashley Rodriguez. I work in your store. I saw everything that happened, and Madison didn't do anything wrong. I have it recorded on my phone." Karen Stevens was starting to hyperventilate. "That's not possible," she stammered, but her voice was already shaking. The company is. "The company is mine," Michelle said, finally turning her full attention to Karen. "Every store, every employee, every policy, every decision. Mine." And you, Karen Stevens, just made the biggest mistake of your pathetic little life. Karen's legs actually gave out a little. She grabbed onto a nearby car for support as the reality crashed down on her like a tsunami. She'd called the police on the owner's daughter. She'd humiliated and traumatized the child of the woman who could end not just her career, but her entire future in retail. Judge Marcus was taking notes on everything he was witnessing. Officer Johnson, I want to be very clear about what's happening here. This child was arrested based solely on the accusations of a store employee who has just been revealed to have a clear conflict of interest. Is that correct? Officer Johnson was sweating now. Your Honor, I responded to a shoplifting call. The store manager said she witnessed a theft in progress. Did you find any stolen merchandise on the child? No, sir. We haven't searched her yet. Did you review any security footage? The manager said the cameras weren't working. Dr. Williams looked up from her examination of Madison. This child shows clear signs of trauma and distress. Her pulse is elevated, she's showing symptoms of a panic attack, and she's been crying for over an hour. Officer, keeping a child in handcuffs based on such flimsy evidence could constitute child abuse. Michelle walked over to Madison, who was still in handcuffs, and gently touched her daughter's face. Baby, are you okay? Did anyone hurt you? Madison nodded through her tears. Mommy, I didn't do anything wrong. I just wanted to buy you a birthday dress with my own money. Michelle's heart broke and rebuilt itself with titanium in that moment. She turned back to Officer Johnson with eyes that could melt steel. Officer, you have exactly 10 seconds to remove those handcuffs from my daughter before this becomes a federal civil rights case. Officer Johnson didn't need to be told twice. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely work the key, but he got those handcuffs off Madison in record time. The moment Madison was free, she collapsed into her mother's arms, sobbing. Michelle held her daughter tight, whispering reassurances, while her eyes promised vengeance on everyone who had caused this pain. Dr. Angela Thompson immediately began a more thorough medical examination. Michelle, I need to take Madison to the hospital for a full evaluation. The stress of this situation could have serious psychological and physical effects. Karen Stevens was still standing there in shock, watching her entire world collapse around her. She'd built her identity around being the gatekeeper of this upscale boutique, and she'd just discovered that she'd been working for the mother of the girl she'd tried to destroy. But this wasn't over. Not even close. Michelle Taylor was just getting started, and Karen Stevens was about to learn what happens when you mess with the wrong family. The real reckoning was about to begin. The silence that followed Michelle's revelation was broken only by the sound of Karen Stevens' labored breathing. You could literally watch the color drain from her face as the full weight of reality crashed down on her like a collapsing building. This wasn't just any angry parent. This was the owner of the entire company, the woman who signed her paychecks, the person who could end not just her career, but her entire future in retail. Karen's survival instincts finally kicked in, and she started scrambling for any excuse that might save her. Mrs. Taylor, there's been a terrible misunderstanding. I was just following store protocol. We have to be careful about shoplifting, you understand. I was protecting your investment. Judge Marcus stepped forward, his federal badge gleaming in the afternoon sun. Miss Stevens, you just admitted that you consider my niece suspicious enough to warrant police involvement based on what criteria exactly? Karen's eyes darted around desperately, looking for support that wasn't coming. Well, she was young and unaccompanied and in a high-end store and black. Dr. Angela Thompson finished coldly. Just say it. You called the police on a child because she was shopping while black. No, that's not. I would never. Karen was hyperventilating now, realizing that every word out of her mouth was digging her grave deeper. Michelle's voice cut through Karen, stammering like a blade. Officer Johnson, I want to see the security footage from my store. Right now. Officer Johnson, still sweating from his own precarious position, nodded frantically. Yes, ma'am, absolutely. Ma'am, if I could just say I had no idea who. You had no idea because you didn't bother to investigate, Judge Marcus interrupted. You took the word of a store employee over a child without conducting any kind of proper inquiry. Inside Bella's boutique, the security system was being accessed by Ashley Rodriguez, whose hands were shaking as she pulled up the footage from the past 2 hours. The main screen in the back office displayed everything in crystal-clear digital quality. Michelle, Judge Marcus, Dr. Angela Thompson, Officer Johnson, and several witnesses crowded into the office while Karen Stevens stood in the corner, knowing she was about to watch her lies be exposed. In high definition. The footage was damning. It showed Madison entering the store with a bright smile, politely approaching Karen for help, being completely ignored, then dismissed with barely concealed hostility. Every interaction was captured in perfect detail. Madison's respectful handling of the merchandise, her patient waiting when Karen helped white customers first, her polite questions about prices. Look at that, Dr. Angela Thompson pointed to the screen. Madison is being more careful with those dresses than most adult customers would be. The footage showed Karen following Madison around the store like she was tracking a criminal, hovering over her, making comments that clearly made Madison uncomfortable. Then came the moment Madison showed Karen her money. You could see the shock on Karen's face, followed immediately by anger rather than apology. Right there, Ashley said, pointing to the screen with tears in her eyes. That's when Madison showed her the $450. Look at Karen's reaction. She's not surprised that Madison has money. She's angry about it. The most devastating part of the footage came next. It clearly showed Madison doing absolutely nothing wrong. No concealing of merchandise, no suspicious behavior, no theft of any kind. When Karen claimed to have seen Madison concealing items, the camera showed Madison simply adjusting her jacket after getting warm in the store. Judge Marcus was taking detailed notes. Officer Johnson, what you're seeing here is clear evidence that Miss Stevens made a false police report. Madison committed no crime whatsoever. Karen made one last desperate attempt to save herself. The cameras don't show everything. She could have concealed items when the camera couldn't see. Michelle turned to look at Karen with such contempt that the woman actually took a step backward. So your defense is that my daughter is some kind of master criminal who managed to steal merchandise that somehow became invisible? Is that really the story you want to stick with? That's when Ashley Rodriguez found her voice and her courage. She'd been silent for too long, complicit in Karen's discrimination through her inaction, but watching this family's pain had awakened something in her that couldn't be silenced anymore. Mrs. Taylor, Ashley said, stepping forward, I need to tell you everything I witnessed today, and I need to apologize for not speaking up sooner. Ashley pulled out her phone and showed the recorded footage she'd captured. I recorded parts of what happened because I knew it was wrong, but I was scared for my job. I watched Karen treat your daughter completely differently than she treated white customers. I watched her follow Madison around the store like she was a criminal. I watched her refuse to believe Madison had legitimate money to make a purchase. The phone footage was even more damning than the security cameras because it included audio. You could hear Karen's condescending tone, her snide comments about Madison not belonging in the store, her dismissive attitude when Madison tried to explain she had money to buy a dress. Michelle walked slowly toward Karen Stevens, her heels clicking against the floor like a countdown to judgment. Karen instinctively backed away until she was pressed against the wall with nowhere to go. Karen Stevens, Michelle said, her voice so quiet that everyone had to strain to hear, you destroyed my daughter's innocence today. You took a child who trusted the world and taught her that some people will hate her for the color of her skin. You traumatized a young girl who was trying to buy her mother a birthday present. Karen was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks in dark streams. Mrs. Taylor, please, I'm sorry. I made a mistake. I can learn. I can change. You're sorry? Michelle's voice rose slightly, and everyone could hear the fury she was keeping in check. You're sorry that you got caught. You're sorry that your victim turned out to be connected to someone with power. But you're not sorry for what you did to my child. Judge Marcus stepped forward with official authority. Miss Stevens, what you did today constitutes filing a false police report, which is a criminal offense. You could face charges. Officer Johnson, realizing his own career was hanging by a thread, tried to interject. Ma'am, Mrs. Taylor, I want to apologize for my role in this. I should have investigated more thoroughly before making an arrest. Michelle turned her laser focus on Officer Johnson. Officer, you put handcuffs on my 14-year-old daughter based on the word of a woman who clearly had racial bias. You didn't ask for evidence. You didn't review security footage. You didn't even question why a child with $450 in cash would need to steal a dress she could afford to buy. Dr. Angela Thompson looked up from her examination of Madison. Michelle, I need to get Madison to the hospital for a full trauma evaluation. Her blood pressure is elevated, she's showing signs of acute stress reaction, and she needs immediate psychological support. But before they could leave, Michelle had one more piece of business to handle. She turned to address not just Karen Stevens, but Officer Johnson, the crowd of onlookers, the news cameras, and everyone who needed to understand what had just happened. Karen Stevens, you are terminated immediately. You are banned from all Prestige Fashion Group properties. Security will escort you from the premises, and you will never work in retail again if I have anything to say about it. Karen collapsed into a chair, the full weight of her destroyed future crashing down on her. She'd lost her job, her reputation, and possibly her freedom, all because she couldn't see past her own prejudices. Michelle looked around at the crowd of witnesses, the news cameras, and the people who had gathered to see justice served. What happened here today is unacceptable, but it's not unusual. This kind of discrimination happens every day to children and adults who don't have the resources to fight back. That ends today. She pulled out her phone and called her head of corporate communications. Patricia, I need you to issue an immediate press release. Effective immediately, Prestige Fashion Group is implementing comprehensive anti-bias training for all employees. We're establishing a customer equality policy with zero tolerance for discrimination. And I'm creating a $10 million scholarship fund for young people who face discrimination. The crowd began to murmur with approval. This wasn't just about one incident. Michelle was using her power and resources to create systemic change. But the most important moment was still to come. Michelle walked over to where Madison was sitting with Dr. Angela Thompson and knelt down to her daughter's eye level. Baby girl, I am so sorry I wasn't here when you needed me, Michelle said, her voice breaking for the first time all day. I'm sorry that this happened to you. I'm sorry that some people in this world are going to judge you before they know you. But I want you to know that what happened today says nothing about you, and everything about the ignorance of people like Karen Stevens. Madison looked up at her mother with eyes that seemed older than they had been that morning. Mommy, I just wanted to buy you something beautiful for your birthday. I saved my money for so long. Michelle felt tears streaming down her own face for the first time since arriving. I know, sweetheart, and we're still going to buy that dress. We're going to buy that dress and several others because you deserve to shop wherever you want without fear. Dr. Angela Thompson finished her preliminary examination. Michelle, Madison is physically okay, but I strongly recommend counseling to help her process this trauma. What she experienced today was a form of psychological abuse. Already arranged, Michelle said. Dr. Sarah Williams is meeting us at the hospital. But before they left for the hospital, Michelle insisted on something that surprised everyone. Madison, I want us to go back into that store together. I want you to pick out the dress you originally wanted, and I want Ashley to help us properly. Judge Marcus looked concerned. Michelle, are you sure that's wise? Madison has been through enough trauma for one day. Uncle Marcus, this is important. Madison said, speaking up for herself. "I don't want that lady to win. I don't want to be afraid to shop anymore." And so, with Ashley Rodriguez now in charge, they returned to Bella's boutique. But this time, everything was different. Ashley approached them with genuine warmth and respect, the kind of customer service that should have been offered from the beginning. "Mrs. Taylor, Madison, welcome to Bella's boutique," Ashley said with a genuine smile. "Madison, I understand you're looking for a special dress for your mother's birthday?" Madison nodded, still staying close to her mother, but showing remarkable resilience. "Yes, ma'am. I wanted to find something that would make her feel beautiful." Ashley's eyes filled with tears at the maturity and love in Madison's voice. "Let's find you the perfect dress then." They spent the next hour in the store, with Ashley providing the kind of exceptional service that Madison should have received from the beginning. She brought Madison different sizes, offered styling advice, and treated both mother and daughter with the respect they deserved. Madison found the emerald green dress she'd originally wanted, and Michelle insisted they also pick out 3 more dresses. Not because Madison needed them, but because she deserved to have a positive shopping experience that would help heal the trauma of the day. As they completed their purchase, Ashley rang up the sale with care and attention. "Madison, your mother is lucky to have such a thoughtful daughter. That dress is going to look absolutely stunning on her." Michelle watched her daughter's confidence slowly returning as she was treated with kindness and respect. This was how shopping should feel: exciting, empowering, joyful. The news of what happened at Bella's boutique spread rapidly through social media and traditional news outlets. By that evening, the story was trending nationally. Justice for Madison became a rallying cry for people who had experienced similar discrimination. Michelle used the media attention to announce sweeping changes across all prestige fashion group properties. Every employee would undergo mandatory bias training. A diverse hiring initiative would ensure that store staff reflected the communities they served. Customer equality policies would be posted prominently in every store, with severe consequences for any employee who violated them. Most importantly, Michelle established the Madison Taylor Foundation, a $10 million scholarship fund for young people who faced discrimination. The foundation would provide educational opportunities and mentorship for students who might otherwise be overlooked or underestimated because of their race, ethnicity, or economic background. 3 weeks later, Michelle Taylor was celebrating her 40th birthday at an elegant party attended by family, friends, and business associates. She was wearing the emerald green dress that Madison had chosen for her, and she looked absolutely radiant. When it came time for speeches, Michelle stood up with tears in her eyes and spoke about the most important person in her life. "3 weeks ago, my daughter Madison faced one of the ugliest forms of discrimination that still exists in our society. She was shopping for a birthday dress for me when a store manager decided that the color of her skin made her a criminal. Madison was arrested, handcuffed, and traumatized for the crime of shopping while black." The room was silent, everyone hanging on her every word. But what that store manager didn't know was that she wasn't just attacking any child, she was attacking my child. And what she really didn't know was that her victim had more courage, grace, and dignity than she could ever hope to possess. Michelle looked directly at Madison, who was sitting at the head table, beaming with pride. "Madison, you showed me something that day that I'll never forget. When the world was cruel to you, you didn't become cruel in return. When someone tried to make you feel small, you stood tall. When injustice tried to break your spirit, you fought back with truth and integrity. You inspired me to use my power and resources to make sure this never happens to another child." The applause was thunderous, but Michelle wasn't finished. "This dress I'm wearing tonight isn't just beautiful. It represents something much more important. It represents a daughter's love for her mother, a child's resilience in the face of hatred, and the power we all have to choose love over fear, justice over prejudice, and action over silence." Michelle raised her glass. To Madison Taylor, who at 14 years old taught her mother and everyone else in this room that change starts with having the courage to speak up. Every child deserves to dream, shop, and exist without fear. The standing ovation lasted for 5 full minutes, with many guests wiping away tears. Madison stood up and hugged her mother. And in that moment, you could see that their bond had been strengthened rather than broken by the ordeal they'd faced together. 6 months later, Bella's boutique reopened after extensive renovations and retraining. The grand reopening event was attended by community leaders, civil rights activists, and families from all backgrounds. Michelle and Madison cut the ribbon together, symbolizing a new chapter not just for the store, but for the fight against discrimination in retail. Karen Stevens never worked in retail again. Officer Johnson received additional training on bias and proper investigation procedures. But more importantly, Madison Taylor grew up knowing that her voice mattered, that injustice could be fought, and that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply refuse to be silenced. The dress that started it all, the emerald green dress that Madison chose for her mother's birthday, became a symbol of love overcoming hate, courage triumphing over fear, and the unbreakable bond between a mother and daughter who changed the world by refusing to accept discrimination as normal. Every child deserves to dream, shop, and exist without fear. Because of Madison and Michelle Taylor's courage, thousands of children would have that chance. If you enjoyed this story, like, subscribe, and share to others so they can learn too. See you in our next video.